People often ask me about my Blender setup. Since I am only working in Blender in order to create and alter objects in Tabletop Sim, I have my Blender set up to specifically help my workflow with that in mind. This is likely not the best way to set it up, but it is how I like it and it's better than default, so give it a try. When you first start a Blender, this will be the view you see. Mine is colored a little differently because I have a theme applied, but otherwise it's the same. Our first step is getting rid of the startup cube. We're going to right click on it, press delete, and press enter. Now we have a clean workspace. We're going to go up to File, User Preferences, and we're going to uncheck Show Splash. Save user settings and hit the X, and what that does is it gets rid of the dialog box that comes up when you first start up the program. It's just an extra thing that you need to close out, preventing you from getting to work right away. Now down here at the bottom, the timeline area, we're going to want to hide that since it's not relevant to Tabletop Sim work. Maybe if you're animating something that you want to bring into Unity, it might be useful for you, but otherwise we want to get rid of it and save the space. From the corner here, there's a little triangle. We're going to grab that and drag it down to the bottom and free up that area. Next, we're going to want to make sure our workspace is well lit, so we're going to take the lamp that's already in the scene. We're going to right click on it. Alternately, you can come up to the hierarchy here and left click on it. And we're going to want to bring it down to this corner. So we're going to grab the red handle and the green handle and bring it over and just get it kind of situated at the corner of the grid. Once you have it situated, we want to raise it up so that we got some height on the models that we're working with and making sure the tops of the models are well lit. Then we're going to want to change this weak light source to something stronger. So we're going to want to go to the Objects Data tab and change it from a point to a sun. Now you'll see the sun comes in with this angle that's designating the way it's facing. So we're going to want to rotate that towards the center. We're going to press R for rotate and Z for along the Z axis and just get it somewhere in the center. Now we got this side lit, we want to get the other side lit, so we're going to duplicate this by pressing Shift D and then hitting enter. And just using those same handles, we're going to bring it over to the other corner. Now over here, obviously the light source is pointing the wrong way, so we're going to want to press R again and Z and rotate it around until it's in the center. And there we go, we got the top lit. So the top of the grid is lit, but the bottom will still be shaded and shadowed. And if you're working with models that have textures all the way around, you're going to want to see the bottom without having to rotate the model. So we're going to do the same thing and bring the other light sources down to the bottom. So we're going to press Shift D again and enter, and bring the new one down below the grid, about equal distance away from the grid as the top ones. We can spin around here and get orientation correct. And then from here, we're going to want to point it down because it's pointing up right now. So we're going to press R for rotate, X for along the X axis, and we're going to want to bring it down so that it's centered. Then we'll do, again, Shift D, enter, drag it along here to the other side. And then again, we're going to do R and Z for Z axis and rotate it around until it's centered. All right, now we have the grid fairly illuminated. You could say that we could add some more to these corners, top and bottom, but I don't like to add too much clutters. It does add these lines in here that tend to be there visually. You learn to ignore them though, and you want to make sure your models are well lit regardless. The next thing we want to do is over here in the hierarchy tab. We'll drag this down to see it a little better. All these lamps, we want to make sure that they can't be interacted with or clicked while we're working with models, just avoiding any kind of hiccups while we're working. So once you get over here, we're going to select each one of these cursors. And once you uncheck all those cursors for all the lamps, they cannot be interacted with normally. You could still come up here to the hierarchy and interact with them that way if you wanted to change any settings. But for you to be able to select them in the 3D view, you would have to make sure that they're selectable. Now that we got that set up, we want to make sure that we have our screen all set up to be able to work on models while having the UV and the texture window right next to it. That way you can mess with your UV mapping and see your texture and manipulate your textures without having to switch windows. So what we're going to do is we're going to come up here where it says default and click this drop down and click on the UV editing tab. Now it'll split the screen for the UV editing side and your 3D view. While your cursor's in the 3D view, you're going to press T to hide the transform options. And then over here in the UV editing side, you're going to want to just grab this line and drag it over. And then from here, you want to grab that middle separator and drag it over, because you don't need the UV view all that big. You obviously want to see more of your model and less of your textures. And that can be manipulated on the fly if you need vice versa, more texture space and less 3D view space. But this is a good template to start off with. Now you can see we lost our hierarchy and our properties. So what we're going to want to do is we're going to come over here where this triangle tab is, and we're going to pull it out. And then we're going to come over here to this triangle tab and we're going to pull it down. Now down here at the bottom here corresponds to this top window. We're going to click on it and go to Outliner. There's our hierarchy. And then on this one, for this window, we're going to click on here and we're going to go to Properties. And that gets everything set up for you just like it was before. One of the last things we will do is to get your texture project set up so that you can see the textures projected onto the models in the 3D view window. You won't see any confirmation of this change, but if you just press Alt and Z, you now have your textures applied to the models in the 3D view window. That way you won't have to change windows or do a model render to see the textures and how they will apply. And when we start up the program, this will automatically be active every time. As far as that's concerned, this is the 3D view layout. Now that we got that all set up, we're going to have to save it as a startup file. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to we're going to go to Control U, and we're going to save startup file. And what this does now is every time that we start up the file, or every time we reset the startup file, which is with a Control N, it'll always come back to this view. It'll always give us the same 3D window with the UV window over here and all your hierarchy and properties tabs here. And it'll also save all your lighting setups. So if you did end up adding more lighting to these corners, just make sure you do a Control U, save the startup file, and you're set. Every time you load up Blender, you'll have that same startup file ready to go for you. Well, that's it for this tutorial. I hope that helps you get Blender set up in a way you like it. If you have any questions or requests for other tutorials related to Blender or bringing content into Tabletop Sim, leave a comment below and I'll get back to you. Blender is a good way of getting the objects you want into the game. Thanks for watching, I'll see you around.